Hello everyone, it's Saoirse, and today we are going to talk about some hot and dry books because I'm in Florida and we are experiencing a literal drought. It's been going on for quite a while, and I don't think anybody really even acknowledged that it was a drought until recently when we realized, oh, it hasn't rained in a long time, and normally this time of year it would be raining now. So all the plants are miserable. I am hot. I'm upset, and on this channel we like to compound our misery, much like when you are sad and you listen to sad songs, or when you're already lonely and you isolate yourself. We're gonna look at some books that are gonna make us feel just hot and dry. Not all the books are hot, not all the books are dry, some are both. And I had a fun time looking at my shelves and finding books that fit this criteria, so let's just dig in, shall we? This is the first one that I think comes to mind. Don't you want to read this when you are experiencing an actual drought? So if you haven't read Dune, there is a lot of talk about water. Water is a resource that is extremely scarce, and they wear these still suits in the desert that catch their body's water as it leaves them, so that it like recirculates and they can drink the water that comes out of their body. You know what I mean? You have to save every single drop of water in this world, and it's a desert world, so it's hot and it's dry. And as you continue to read the series, things about the landscape do change, but this first one, hot and dry, and I love that the colors on a lot of these books, a lot of them use orange and red to show this is gonna be a hot one. It's just like, oh yeah, obviously, that's how. I don't know, that's how our brains work. We see orange and red and yellow and we're just like, ooh. So, next one, this was also like tied with Dune for most obvious for me. Holes. Extremely hot and extremely dry. That's the whole point, okay? This kid goes to Camp Green Lake, which is like a youth detention center basically, and he has to dig a hole 5 feet wide, 5 feet deep every day, all day in the hot sun. And there's like a curse on this land because it hasn't rained. It hasn't rained in like over 100 years, I think. So it's dry. And you can just feel the blistering heat in this book. And it's a fantastic movie too. Everybody in this came out, I think, when I was in 3rd grade, and everyone was completely obsessed with it. Like, it was all that we cared about. Okay, no, the book came out in 1998, but the movie came out when I was in 3rd grade. And yeah, highly recommend. Even if you don't want to feel hot and dry, this is a great book. I know this is a weird video concept. I'm really reaching you guys because I'm still reading Heretics of Dune, and I'm moving very, very slow, so I don't have any, like book updates to bring you. So I just thought, what's going on in my life right now? It's hot out and I hate it, and it needs to rain because I really want to get to work on my garden, and I kind of am in a holding pattern because there's no rain. This one my sister suggested, The Martian, and I mean, look at the colors on that cover. You couldn't ask for a more hot and dry cover. And so she said this, and I was like, hang on, isn't Mars freezing? Yeah, but it's dry. Like in this book, he has to, if you haven't read this astronaut gets stuck on Mars, and his crew they have to leave, and he gets trapped there on the planet, and he has to grow potatoes. And I can't remember exactly how I did it. I read it a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure he's growing potatoes without water, because it's dry. And he has to like really ration everything that he's got. Obviously, he's trying to survive for however long it takes for his crew to come back and get him, which could be years. I can't even remember how long it was. I want to say a very like over a year. And this is a great book if you want to encourage yourself and your writing, because this guy Andy Weir wrote this and I think he got rejected by agents or publishers and ended up self-publishing, and then it got picked up by a publisher like at the same time it got picked up by movie producers. So he got a book deal and a movie deal. Like, so yeah, don't be afraid to self-publish if you are just done with the publishing market. Okay, this one I haven't read yet, but my sister also suggested this. We were brainstorming about this, and I've seen the movie, but 127 hours. And I was like, hang on, isn't there a part in that movie where it rains a lot? This is the story, if you don't know. I keep forgetting to tell you what these are, like you're in my head. This guy is a true story. He goes out hiking in the remote Utah Canyonlands, and he is in this like narrow slot in a canyon. It says an 800-pound boulder tumbled loose and pinned his right hand and wrist against the canyon wall. So there was 6 days, with scant water. Oh, and it says warm clothing. Are you telling me it was cold? Okay, well it looks like one of those things where you're like in the desert and it's pretty hot during the day and then it's cold at night. So I'll let it slide. But he is trapped there with his arm pinned, and he has to cut off his arm. But yeah, I thought there was a scene in that movie where it starts raining a lot and like filling up the canyon thing that he's in, and he really has to get out because he'll drown. Maybe I am remembering that wrong. But oh god, there's pictures in this book too. Oh, it's horrifying. Like, you can't even imagine having to do that. This one I did a video on, Eleutheria. And this is that one where I'd say it's like slightly in the future, and this woman wants to join this kind of, I don't know if I'd call it a cult, but maybe, that is committed to conservation and like getting the world really stoked on conservation. Like, they're gonna save the world. And so she goes out to this island in the Bahamas, and it's hot. I don't know if it's that dry. It's not that dry, because there is like a hurricane and rain, and they're surrounded by water. But it's very hot, and you've got some orange here. I figured like any books that are set in islands like this, or in Florida, have some of those, you're gonna get a feeling of being hot, okay? That's what we want here. And I thought of this. In a sunburned country, if you like Bill Bryson, you gotta check this out. Like, if you like Bill Bryson, just read all of his books because they're all fantastic. And you have the orange here. So this is about Australia. This is nonfiction about him traveling in Australia. And the title says it all. In a sunburned country, you're gonna be hot reading this book. You're gonna feel a little bit dry. So, yeah. He wrote A Walk in the Woods, which is about the Appalachian Trail. Boom! Okay, I didn't even read the backs of these when I was planning this video because whatever. But it says, Australia, the country that doubles as a continent and a place with the friendliest inhabitants, the hottest, driest weather, and the most peculiar and lethal wildlife to be found on the planet. I'm like, I called it. Hottest and driest weather. So yeah, you're gonna feel it when you read this book. Is anybody into this, like, making things worse when they're already bad? You know, we did the video on, like, cozy books to read during Christmas, so it's already kind of a cozy season and you want to curl up and make it even cozier, right? So why read books about lush rainforests and, like, trekking through freezing glaciers when you could read about the weather conditions that you are in that are making you miserable? You know, why try to do the opposite? just lean in to how awful it is outside. Um, I don't know. There's something to be said for trying to use literature as escapism, and maybe I should read something that is cold and wet to get away from what I'm experiencing right now. Um, but that's not how I work. So, Wild. If you have read this, you'll know the beginning. Well, this is a nonfiction account of Cheryl Strayed hiking on the Pacific Crest Trail, and the beginning of that trail, depending on how you look at it, is the desert. So you're starting at the border of Mexico and California, and man, it is hot and it is dry when she is trekking through the desert. I remember scenes of like she's desperately trying to find water, and the only water is this gross, really questionable reservoir. And you know, I had a lot of hot and dry days on the AT even. The AT is, I've never been to the PCT, but I think the AT is a lot more lush, and it's called the Green Tunnel. There's a lot of water sources, and there is no desert section. But there were times when in the summer, and I think in places like New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania is pretty rocky, it can get dry. People would leave water caches by the road for hikers because you could go a long time without getting water. I remember somewhere up there, I ran out of water, and that had never happened to me before on the trail. And I had to hike like, I don't know, I want to say more than 10 miles with no water, and just knowing like, yeah, I'm sure I'll make it. I'm gonna make it to town because there was a town coming. But the idea of like, what if I'm just so thirsty I don't make it? Or what if I do this again, mess up again? There were some very hot days where like the trail was this crumbly dirt, gravel, everything is, the color of a desert. Yeah, and like rattlesnakes, actual rattlesnakes. So the idea of hiking in the actual desert, very hot, very dry. Cold at night though. Anyway, love this book, love Cheryl Strayed. Just started watching the adaptation of her book Tiny Beautiful Things on Hulu. She's just wonderful. Okay. I included this, and I'm not 100% sure how hot and dry it is, but Lord of the Flies. I have not read this since high school. But they crash. It's children who crash on an island and have to come up with their own civilization. Very scary stuff. But I feel like it's gotta be pretty hot. But I don't know. It could be a cold island. You let me know. Am I getting this wrong here? I see stuff about fire. Maybe it is cold and they're lighting a fire. It can't be that dry because an island is surrounded by water. But you know what they say about water, not a drop to drink, all that. If it's all salt water, you're really up the creek, which is a water metaphor or whatever. Anyway, I don't know how hot and dry that one is. I just thought maybe it is. This one is one of my favorite books. The Blurry Years by Eleanor Kreisman. This is one of those that just burrows into my brain and lives there because there is so much about my own childhood in here because it is, it's not nonfiction, but I highly suspect it was inspired a lot by her life. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just projecting because that's what I do in my writing. But it is the story of a young girl growing up in early 80s Florida. So I was born in the 90s, but Florida's Florida, and it is hot. It is hot almost all year. And it is dry right now, and it goes through some really intense dry periods where you take a drive and everybody's lawn is brown and dead, and at the beach everything is just baked, and like you see that kind of heat haze going on. It might as well be a desert even though we have water everywhere. I live on the Gulf Coast, of Florida, so there's water. And then inland, there's tons of lakes in Florida. I don't know if you know this, but it still feels like a desert sometimes. It just the heat just sucks all the moisture out of everything, and then like puts it in the air somehow. So all the plants are dry, but the air is so muggy you feel like you can't breathe. Anyway, highly recommend The Blurry Years. And that's one you could probably read in a day. This one I read when I was a kid, Out of the Dust. Very old one for me. And it's about the Dust Bowl. The Dust Bowl? Is that what it's called? Is that what it was called? In the 30s? When it was real dusty? I should have looked this up. I'm pretty sure... Oh, see, there's, I love when I open to one page and it's like confirming what I want. Breaking drought. After 70 days of wind and sun, of wind and clouds, of wind and sand, after 70 days of wind and dust, a little rain came. So this one's gonna make you feel real dry. I think it does get cold, because I don't think that was the issue with Dust Bowl. It was not that it was like it can't be hot everywhere in the country. Some of the country does get cold weather, but it was just no rain. Is this in Oklahoma? Sorry, I should have looked it up more, and there's no information on the back. But that was one of those, like, the Newbery Medal Award winners, so maybe we had to read it. Last one, I just threw this in here, Florida. This is a collection of short stories set in Florida or inspired by Florida, and I did a video on this one. And you just have to include it because it's hot. You know, a lot of descriptions of heat, a lot of storms too, which I would kill for a storm right now. I would love to have a glorious, earth-shattering thunderstorm at this moment, but no, I'm just looking out at my hanging baskets where the plants that I've had these impatiens that I planted 2 years ago, maybe more than 2 years ago, in these hanging baskets, and they're finally being brought to ruin by this drought because I haven't been just going out and watering them every single day, because this time of year usually I wouldn't have to, but I'm very sad about that. But anyway, yeah, stories about Florida. You're gonna have some heat. I think we're more known for being hot than dry. When you think of Florida, you think of muggy, nasty, wet air. But yeah, we're getting that. We're getting the muggy air, but it is not raining. It just will not rain. We've gotten like a couple of sprinkles in the past month that don't even, the storm doesn't even cover the whole city. It'll be like one tiny area. And then it's blue sky again, and everything is so dry. I'm surprised that we're not having fires. I mean, I don't even know if that's a thing here. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to and hoping that the thunderstorms start soon. It's kind of scary that they're not yet. Very scary. I guess, that's more June, July, when we get really intense thunderstorms every single day at 3 p.m. That's just how it works here. And it's a frightening thought to think maybe that's not going to happen. Like, what would we do if we didn't get our summer storms? I don't know. I don't know what's causing this. Climate change is real. I don't know. I'm no meteorologist or climatologist or any kind of ologist. So, but anyway, I hope you enjoyed these hot and dry books, and if you have any recommendations for other hot and dry books, just some you want to tell me about, because I feel like there have to be so many, even like classics that everybody knows about that I'm totally forgetting, and I'm sure tons that I've never heard of or read that would fit this genre perfectly. And then conversely, if you want to recommend any wet and cold books just to kind of cleanse our palate, please, by all means. I will not stop you. So thank you for watching, and until next time, I don't know, drink a cold glass of water, water your plants, help them out, tell me if you're in a drought right now or not. and I will see you all with I have no idea what. Until then, happy reading.